Hello, I'm Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. Don't worry, you've come across the least SEO podcast on the planet. You won't find any interviews. There's not that much FOMO. It's really just a place to relax and to feel okay for maybe just a minute that you're an SEO, a professional SEO. Now, the last few episodes were heavy on the helpful content system. So, to be honest, expect more of the same, since I believe I have cracked the nut on the helpful content system, and I can prove it. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 14 of Confessions of an SEO. Before I get into this week's topic, I want to share that I'll be speaking at length about the helpful content system at the Rank Elevation Summit taking place this year in Canada on June 10th and 11th. I'll put all the details in the description as well as the American Way Media Facebook page. I also have a video on there from one of the webinars that we did back in early March. Tickets as of this recording are still available. You can also check up the speaker lineup. I'll put the link in the description so you can kind of figure out, check out what do you need to invest in you to be there. And of course, the founders of Entity Elevation, Daryl Osborne and Clinton Dixon, they're going to be running the whole show. So you better get your Entity game face on, people. All right. Now, I have some news. So there's going to be a big announcement this week. Keep your ears and eyes open. And this is really for those affiliate sites and e-commerce sites that since last fall, they noticed a sharp drop-off in revenue and clicks and impressions for their site or sites. So if you want to get notified before anybody else, sign up on the Search-Driven Insights on Substack. Now, that is a never-before kind of alliance between myself and Marie Sayas. And we are, depending on how well the field tests develop, even on a bad day looking at it, this is going to be a game changer for those sites and for those site owners. And I saw this, it's like when I say this was, I'm laughing when I say this, but, a hard nut that got cracked, I really mean it. I'm really looking at how much this is going to change the game. There's no hyperbole in what I'm saying. And I know that is saying a lot because it sounds like it, right? Well, you have to check it out. Now, I'm going to go to this week's topic. If you're not familiar with it, the Google engineers do every now and then podcast where they get together, and it's called Search Off the Record. And it's insightful. You learn a lot of things that, in my case, I learn a lot of things about things that I thought that I knew, right? So it involves Gary, I think it's Illes, looks like Ilias, Lizzie Sassman, and Dave Smart. And Dave, I think we should connect. I will find you. So what were Gary, Lizzie, and Dave talking about? The title of the conversation was called, "What is a web crawler really?" Right? So you kind of can see why I was attracted to this topic. Now, if you're new to Confessions, you can search for my name, Carolyn Holzman, and Google indexing. Just all 4 words, and you'll see a lot of tidbits and reports from the indexation process of Google search. Now, I've been testing Google's indexation system every day for almost 3 years. And by the way, fun to note, this June, the project will hit day 1,000. So if anybody has any ideas of, what would be a good idea to celebrate and do it on a shoestring, hit me up, okay? Now, getting back to what I really want to talk about. The Google engineers, they're talking about what a web crawler is. And like I said, I learned something kind of new. And when I say like new, I kind of mean like a little deeper to where it provides a framework, and I have like some new vocabulary. So there are things that all of us think we understand, but when it comes to not just what is it, but how does it do it, that's where some great questions get asked and answered. Now, I will put the link to the podcast episode. I found it on YouTube. And if you haven't heard yet, Google Podcasts is going away and YouTube Podcasts is going to carry that torch moving forward. So if you're on Google Podcasts and you haven't moved your podcast over, I have, what are you waiting for? So do you want to know what I learned? Well, turns out there are different names for these crawlers that internal in Google, what they refer to them as. That was said kind of like crazy, but hang on just a second. They have internal jargon they use to describe these bots, and when they use those terms, they know what they're talking about in terms of what are those things crawling. Now, they said that Googlebot is composed of 3 different systems, so subsystems. So we have the indexation system, which we know at first we thought 3, now they've said 4 subsystems. So now under the crawling system, they have Googlebot, and Googlebot has 3 different systems itself. So the first one, and they call it the fetcher. And what it looks like, I could describe you the crawler string, but I'll put it in the description. But it's the one that I see crawl all the directive files, including the HTML. If you've not published in a while and you pull your server logs, this is the Google crawler bot that will come every day. And there's no Chrome attached to it. So it's just it says, well, I'll put the thing in there. But clearly that has to be from the fetcher subsystem. And they said, anybody at Google can control it and ask it to fetch a page from the internet. But it's not officially a Googlebot. So even though we in our own industry call it Googlebot, technically we should call it the fetcher bot. So if that one is not a Googlebot, then what is a real Googlebot? So it's the crawlers that actually have a Chrome build inside of them, and it says Googlebot in the string when you look at the server records. Now, if you're not familiar with server records, those are held at your hosting. So your hosting company has those, and most of them make it easy to have access to. Not everybody does, but I think they are an incredible diagnostic when it comes to finding out what is actually happening. What is Google crawling? What is Google having trouble crawling? And anyway, it was so, this next part was critical to me to confirm, because in their conversation, Gary said that Googlebot has literally 0 involvement in what gets indexed and served. That's kind of, I suspected that because I couldn't figure out how a crawler that crawls and pulls things back, did they hang around for the meeting, or do they just head right back out the door and grab more? And so the answer is they head back out the door and grab more. So if Google is just fetching it, is how Gary described it. So then it turned to, how does Google know what to prioritize, what content to crawl? And this past week, there was a lot of scuttlebutt about this part of the conversation, because some were characterizing it as Gary saying he wished for there to be less crawling. And I heard this secondhand, and on the surface, it sounded like a horrible idea. But, they always say, go to the source. Don't listen to what somebody tells you what they think about what he said. Is go and see what he said. I'm going to do that for you. So here's the quote. I would prefer if people would try to identify what are the important URLs that they actually care about to show up in the search versus I want everything from my site to show up because, in his words, he said, realistically, we, meaning Google, don't have infinite storage space. So we have to wrangle with what we put into the index and what we exclude. So in a clearer way, we can see that they are indeed bumping up on some hard real world space limitations. So one of the questions was, how can we get Google to crawl our content more? Now, right now, and I think this was prominent when I got into the business, but a lot of people think publishing new content is how you do it. Now, I don't think it is these days, especially if you're scratching your head trying to figure out what the hell else you can talk about on your site, and you're back to picking keywords from the Google keyword tool. Honestly, based on what I've seen, updating your existing content is likely the best way. So let me just also characterize that. I am not saying change your URL. I mean, for God's sake, don't change your URL. But if you want to make some refinements on your existing content, look at your headers, see if they make sense. Or, if you're overusing your target keyword, replace it with a variant keyword. Kind of get a little creative, but don't go crazy. So, but really the point why we're here is we want to find out what Gary said. So he said, Google knows your URLs, but Google wants to know how sought after your content is in search. And I quote, because if we see that people are looking for your content and they are linking to your content, then that will naturally increase how much search wants to crawl from your site. All right, do you need more of a roadmap, people? And then they gave a kind of little class on what to do if your site is new, right? So if you're a brand new site, there's not going to be a lot of people looking for your content and linking to you. But he said, some things you should probably do, quote, I would probably do something like social media promotion or whatever. Basically, just let people know that I have this site and they should link to me because links are actually really important for discovery. And last but not least, and this isn't part of the new for me, but I was really glad that they talked about it the way they did. And the sitemap is a huge help to Google to know when they need to recrawl. If you make minor changes, it will likely trigger that fetch reflex to crawl the HTML. If you make a little, heavier change, but, not so much that, they think it's a brand new page and they've never seen it before. But if you do that, again, please do not go crazy. Sometimes I wonder if some SEOs get too frenetic with one little thing that somebody says and they go at their content like a meth head. All right. Well, on that visual, I'm going to bid you adieu for this week. So again, check out the Entity Elevation Summit. You do not want to miss that one. Get on the Search Driven Insights Substack with your best email, because if you are weeping and wailing, we have the cure for you. And again, if you think you have a site that's been hit by the helpful content system, now it's baked into the core algorithm, you will want to know about that training solution that is coming out. While you're waiting, whether or not you have one or more sites, figure out what your monthly revenue is that you're losing and how many months you've been losing it. Because we will make sure that when you sign up for the training, we will know pretty much with 100% certainty that if what we have discovered will be for you. Now, if you want fresh out of the oven indexation data, of course, you could always check out Crawl or No Crawl on Substack. This is such a big week. I didn't even get to the helpful content system paper that's coming out soon. So come back next week. I'll tell you a little story about that. And by then, it's just a question of how quick you want to know what the helpful content is targeting. You'll know it. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for being a listener. If there are any topics you'd like me to cover this month that are not about the helpful content system, you can text Confessions at 512-222-3132 and just send your topic idea. Well, thanks again. And until next week, I'll see you in the SERPs.